Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to be talking about the Chinese bank runs. What is a bank run? What is causing this Chinese bank run? And is this something that you should be worried about if you're in the US, Canada, or some other part of Europe? Should we worry about possible regional bank runs with the economic uncertainty that we currently have underway? And we'll discuss that once we go through this article. Let's get into this. Why are bank runs rising in China? Depositors of 4 rural banks in Henan province have not been able to withdraw their funds since April. Sporadic protests have been going on since May. Ladies and gentlemen, think about that. This news really started breaking yesterday, maybe a little bit the day before, but it's actually been since April. This news story came out today. But this actually has been a problem since April. Could you imagine not being able to get access to your bank funds for almost 2 months? Bear with me for a moment. I know a lot of times if you're in the US or somewhere in North America, Canada, or if you're in Europe, you may think this could never, ever happen to you. But that's not a good enough reason to think that it can't happen. I mean, I'm certain these citizens would not have put their money in the bank if they thought there was a risk of them not being able to get their money out. In a rare, large protest in China, over 1,000 angry bank depositors who have been protesting for access to their frozen funds faced off with the police in Henan province, leading to a violent clampdown Sunday. Depositors of 4 rural banks in the central province have not been able to withdraw their funds since April. Sporadic protests have been going on since May. After Sunday's protest, China's banking regulator announced that customers with deposits of up to 50,000 yuan will start getting their money back beginning Friday. The arrangements to repay others is yet to be announced. What led to the cash crisis at these rural banks and what it indicates about the Chinese economy? That's a question. A bank run is essentially when people go withdraw their money. If every American went to the bank now and tried to withdraw their money, they would not be able to get it. It does not exist. I don't care about FDIC insurance. Your dollars are not in that bank. We operate something called a fractional reserve lending. And this basically means that the banks only have to have a small percent of the cash on hand or access to a small percent of the cash. And by the way, that access is sometimes a 24-hour access. I have had clients of mine in the past have went to withdraw, 5 figures, less than 20 grand, and they could not get it withdrawn. Like literally, there was not enough money in the bank at the end of a business banking day. That has actually happened probably twice in about a decade. In my business life, I used to market a high-end product that cost over $10,000, and periodically I would have someone say, "Oh, I'm just going to pay cash for it," and they would literally go to the bank and try to withdraw their money. Never mind the fact most people, if you try to go to the bank right now and try to withdraw $3,000 or $4,000, they're going to ask you several questions, and they're going to document that you came in there. Most people think it's only over $10,000. That's been changed somewhat since the Patriot Act here in the U.S. But a bank run, here it says, a bank run occurs when a large number of depositors rush to simultaneously withdraw their money as they no longer consider it safe with the financial institution, and basically the bank never has all the money. And that sounds crazy, because if there's an American business outside of a bank that did not have funds when clients and customers went to get their funds, then that would be considered breaking the law, but not in our banking system. So why are depositors in Henan protesting? Because they can't get their money. So what led to the cash crisis at the rural banks? This is very interesting. And I've been trying to look this up before I made this video. I was looking for it yesterday and I didn't see anything. And this is the closest I've gotten so far now. The CBIRC, I guess that's Chinese Banking Authority or whatever, has accused Henan New Fortune, a major shareholder in these rural banks, of illegally attracting money from citizens using third-party platforms. Think about this now. China does not allow local banks to take deposits from customers outside of their home base. Okay. What does that matter? These are 2 paragraphs that are wasted. Attracting new customers should not put your bank at risk. In May, the banking regulator told state-run news agency that Henan New Fortune Group, a shareholder of the 4 village banks, has illegally absorbed public funds through internal and external collusion, the use of third-party platforms and fund brokers. Ladies and gentlemen, anytime you're reading the news, think for yourself. Again, we are 3 paragraphs into this. What does it matter? This has nothing to do with a bank run yet. In the present case, it is being alleged that these banks attracted deposits by offering attractive terms and high interest rates. A report in the South China Morning Post in May said that while Bank of China offers 2.75% a year interest on 5-year deposits, the found banks in question were giving around 4.5% a year on their deposit products through third-party platforms. Also, a statement by the Henan police on July 10th said that the criminal group had gradually taken control of several rural banks and was moving funds out. Okay, this paragraph and this paragraph seems unrelated. Let's talk about this one, then we'll come over here. Because I read an entire news article that basically said this was the whole reason of the liquidity crisis. And that's basically what it is. They don't have the liquid cash available to pay out everybody that wants the funds because they don't have the money there. They're saying that this whole paragraph, this whole right here, what led to the cash crisis at the rural banks in Henan. I don't know who is writing this, but none of this makes sense. Even this paragraph here, which is the closest one, they're paying out 4.5% a year. Okay, instead of 2.75%. Okay, and maybe this was the beginning of some sort of a Ponzi scheme. Maybe, they were paying out more than they, that would be unsustainable. But it's 4.5% a year. I mean, arguably, we've watched platforms in the crypto space that were Ponzi scams pay out 1% a day and be able to last a full year. 4.5% should have been able to last for decades and decades. Bernie Madoff was paying out 10% a year in a full Ponzi scam, and he lasts, 30 years, 40 years? So this still does not make sense that they don't have the money unless, and this is yours truly, Crypto Wealth. I'm just sitting here and looking at this, and this is just a hunch because the article still is not giving us a well-defined reason on why there's a Chinese bank run. And again, in a moment, I'm going to bring this back to those of you in the U.S. or Europe, North America, whatever. What could be causing this? I have a hunch. My hunch is mismanagement of funds, taking on entirely too much risk, very similar to what we saw with Voyager, very similar to what we've seen with Celsius. What it looks like they were doing with those companies is they were using crypto in DeFi, trying to earn a profit and pay back out, 10%, 9%, 12%, whatever. I wonder if this bank was doing something similar. And I wonder if they could have been invested anywhere. The real estate market was hot and then it was not. They could have been investing the money anywhere. But just imagine if you could borrow money at 4.5% and use that money, put it into a place that you think is safe, like Voyager or Celsius. Most people assume those platforms, those companies were safe, and thinking that you're going to get a safe return and be able to pay it back out. I don't know, but wouldn't it be crazy if we find out that part of the Chinese bank run issue, part of the liquidity crisis, is because they were investing in some of these platforms that were unsustainable, which, by the way, that's just me thinking, wow, that's interesting. I'm not saying that's happened at all. The reality is they could have been using poor risk management, investing in anywhere right now. We had incredibly soft markets, not only here in the U.S., but globally, and it's possible they've got assets stuck somewhere that's illiquid, and they can't sell it, or they can't pull the money out fast enough to meet the demands from the depositors. Now, also a statement by Henan Police talks about this criminal group gradually taking control of several rural banks and moving funds out. I saw another news article that said this, and basically the entire article said nothing except this one sentence in the end. It gave a lot of details about some criminal organization and some criminal mastermind that for years is working his way into the banking sector, and suddenly he's quote unquote taking control and pulling money out. But it appears that this is a newer phenomenon. Like, it appears that these may not be related, that the liquidity crisis occurred and now it looks like there's a criminal organization possibly. I'm skeptical of even the criminal organization. At the end of the day, when there's a bank run, somebody has to place blame and someone has to take responsibility. The problem is nobody's going to take responsibility and everybody's going to place blame. So even if there's a sketchy criminal mastermind, who, by the way, is a shareholder in a bank, so he wasn't so much a criminal, somebody knew who he was. So somehow there's a criminal mastermind that's a shareholder of a bank, and hey, what do you know? He looks like a great scapegoat. I want to say, what does this mean for American citizens, European citizens? Because I believe, listen, there are some dire predictions right now about us going into a significant recession. And when you listen to my channel, I know sometimes it can sound like I'm negative, but you have to understand, I am a father and a provider for my family. You got to expect like bad things can happen, and how do you prepare for those possible bad things without totally being paralyzed with fear? And I've got some suggestions I'll give you here in a moment. At the same time, even though I understand what the downside is, what the possible risk is, then there's a flip side to that, and it's how do you operate in this space? How do you take advantage? Because millionaires are made in bear markets. I don't have a crystal ball. I think this market is possibly going to go lower, but that doesn't mean that I'm afraid to invest. I just put out a video update for those of you that have gotten my video course, my free video course, how to earn $1,000 per day. Really, it's $1,000 per day in a bear market. That's what I should have called it. But I'll link to that video course down below. But I just sent out a link and given an update on an investment that I'm in right now. There are bear market strategies. And there's really about 3 investments that I look at right now. And I don't want to get off the scope of this video. I'll cover those in a future video, so be sure to subscribe to the channel and click that bell notification icon. But let me say this. When we start seeing broader economic problems, we don't, as average citizens, always know what businesses, what banks, what insurance companies, what major corporations are going to be affected. So we have to protect ourselves and be aware that, we could become collateral damage for some bank that fails, for example. I mean, Lehman Brothers failed back in the last real estate crisis. Nobody with money deposited at Lehman Brothers ever thought that was going to happen. Nobody. Had they thought it was going to happen, they wouldn't have deposited money into Lehman Brothers. There was probably millions of account holders at Lehman Brothers. Here's what I'm going to tell you, and this is what I tell my personal friends and family. This is just information for you to think about. I think it is wise. I'm not necessarily worried about a bank run, but I understand anything is possible in uncertain economic times. I think it is wise. I think it is smart to have somewhere between 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days worth of cash on hand. I know a lot of you thought I was going to talk about, you need some passive income coming in and that sort of thing. Yeah, that comes later, before you can start trying to build out passive income streams, because all that takes time. I think it's more important that you have some, 30 days of cash on hand, enough cash on hand to pay all of your bills, to buy groceries, that sort of thing. In the event that in a short-term time frame, whatever reason, you couldn't get access to your money at the bank. And I think it's wise, by the way, to have more than one bank account at 2 or maybe even 3 different banks. Now, you may say, I don't have enough money to have 3 different bank accounts, and I can understand that. But there's always Cash App or PayPal, Venmo. There's all these other little places you can store cash where you can get access to your funds, and it's not just at your national bank. I would say at least 30 days of cash. I would say more than one account. And when I say 30 days of cash, I mean 30 days worth of cash somewhere at your house where you can get your hands on it. That doesn't require, because if you have Cash App or whatever, and if you have it if you have it connected to the bank where your funds could get frozen, in the event that funds were frozen for some reason, it's going to take you several days to be able to get that, Cash App or whatever to be able to go to another bank account. I would recommend that you have cash on hand first and foremost, at least 30 days worth, maybe 90 days worth. I think that is everybody in the world, everyone who's responsible for a family or even for themselves. But if you've got kids and a family you're responsible for, I think it's very smart to have a small amount of cash on your hand, that you can get access to. Then I think it's smart that you have more than one account and you have a little bit of cash in those other accounts. Just pocket change. A week's worth, 2 weeks worth, whatever, 3 weeks worth, whatever. Worst case scenario, you want to know that you have some cash on hand to get you by. Ladies and gentlemen, all I know is we don't actually have to have anything too major happen. All that has to happen, for example, in the U.S., is for people to get fearful. We don't need to be those fearful people. And I don't mean to create this video to make you fearful. As one of my viewers, I want you to be one of those people that are prepared and able to protect your family if there was ever a time of crisis. And guess what? I believe always invest and always plan where you can be right even if you're wrong. So if nothing happens, who cares? You got a little cash money in the house. That's it. Nothing wrong with that. Doesn't hurt anybody. Ladies and gentlemen, if you love earning passive income and you love cryptocurrency, do me a favor and smash that subscribe button. Click that bell notification icon so you don't miss our next video. Decentralized cryptocurrency equals freedom. This is Crypto Wealth. I'm out.